happy hour. Night attacks happy hour. Night attacks happy hour. Dig.
Oh my God, Justin Robert Young. Do you know how long it has been since we've done a proper happy hour?
10 days.
Yes. Well,
I think because we did one New Year's Day, right?
that is the amount of time in days, but it's been so long that I hit start the stream and I was momentarily confused as to why the music wasn't playing. And then I remembered, hey, dummy, you have to hit play.
You hit the music.
On the music.
Yeah, this is our version. Yeah.
There was somebody on Twitter that said that a friend of theirs had surgery and woke up like they'd been out since Tuesday, so almost a full week. And this person woke up and said, so I guess I missed something. So talk me through the best parts of the last 10 days.
Oh, good God.
Best being in air quotes.
At first it's like, well, Elvis Presley lit the world aflame with rock and roll on the Ed Sullivan Show. Like, God. All right. So I go to Atlanta.
I think the last thing we talked about was whether or not I should wish for a Quest 2 for my birthday. And this is how much
we can start there. We can start there. Yes. Yes. Because by the way, I'm going to just tell you the spoiler. You can either get one now and be the first friend of mine that starts playing virtual mini golf in virtual reality, or you can wait until me and Heaton start playing it and you become so unbearably jealous you fucking go out and get one immediately.
Spend 3 times as much. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
I would
Fair
suggest you get one now.
All right. Done.
Beyond that, God, I mean, it's been one of those a year and a week things, which seems to have been kind of the hallmark of 20. Well, I don't know. 2020. This felt more like 2016 or 2017 or something like that, where like a bunch of stuff kind of piled up. 2020 was this soupy, we're in fast forward and rewind at the same time. Like every day is the same, and yet it's 4 months from when you last blinked.
Right.
Like, whereas it was just news on news on news. We had what should have been, and it has been throughout history, a perfunctory recount election in Georgia. That was why I was going down there. In the meantime, the sitting president of the United States is revealed to have furthered his feud with that his own party's state arm by arguing with the whatever guy, the state of counting votes man, and
The state of counting votesman.
Yeah, and so that happens. I go to this rally out in Dalton, Georgia, which is not exactly Manhattan, if you catch my drift. I mean, Dalton, Georgia ain't big.
Like
right?
bad bagels is what he's trying to say.
Yeah. Dalton ain't big, and we weren't even in Dalton. We were in an airfield, an executive airfield out on the outskirts of Dalton, literally a 1-lane road. I did a triple header of 3 different events, driving all around both the Atlanta metropolitan area, and then up to Dalton, do that, come back, do the election. The election is an upset. The Democrats win. The next day, I'm flying on the way back, and all of a sudden, I'm getting not texts because I'm in the air, but I have Wi-Fi because I'm trying to do other work.
So you're getting tweets?
So I'm getting tweets of, oh my God, are you seeing this? I then land. By the way, the stuff in the Capitol, whatever. Here's something that I haven't told anybody. There was a lady sitting next to me who was watching a movie called Unhinged. Have you ever seen or heard of this movie called Unhinged?
Man, I've heard of it, but I couldn't tell you a thing about it.
So apparently it's like a 2020 version of Falling Down is what I can gather, except it's fat Russell Crowe. And boy, is this man a Dr. Robotnik fat. Like he is a polar bear in this movie. So much so that I'm like, oh, what character actor is this? He looks familiar.
Method
Oh my
acting or
God.
okay.
I have no idea whether they put him in a fat suit or he was already kind of fat and they just made him mega fat.
I
But please
just
find a picture of Russell
Googled
Crowe in Unhinged.
fat Russell Crowe. Sorry.
Oh my God. He is insanely fat.
Is that
And
real?
so, for real, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
At
No.
least in this movie,
he's got the cheeks for it.
in this movie, he is. And so I guess it is real. But this lady is doing something that I have never seen. And you, Brian, you are probably one of the only people in my life that I can defer to you as somebody who's been on more flights than I have.
That is kind of a wild thing where it's like in most circles, I would say
Most.
19 out of 20, you are the flyboy in the room. You are the guy who's got the miles and
even
has
then,
the stories.
Even more than like overseas business travelers, because I was doing 1K domestic. Like I was doing it humping back and forth, which like it takes a lot of flights. Like I've been just on a lot of planes. I've never seen this before. This woman was reacting to a movie she was watching in the way that you would parody like a black movie audience.
Oh
White
my
lady,
God.
yelling at the screen. Yelling at the screen.
Don't go in there. He's got a gun.
Yeah, except like it wasn't necessarily to the characters. It was just, oh, oh my God. Oh, no. Oh, wow.
Now,
Like,
what was this a case where this person had some kind of sound device and was not aware of how loud they were being?
almost assuredly.
Okay.
But at the same time, I kept looking over and I was amused by it. It was actually funny to me. So I wasn't like being mean, right? But I did just, well, first she would make a noise and my first thought would be to look over, but then I'd be like, oh, what the hell's happening in this movie? This is like the fifth time that she's yelled. And it was Russell Crowe running people over. It's apparently just 2 hours of Russell Crowe just running men, women, and children over. It's a movie about road rage, I guess, and that dude is just murdering and murdering and murdering.
Okay. So Falling Down was at least kind of a tour for the average Joe of like, here's a bunch of crazy weapons you might have heard of. Here's somebody who looks and feels a lot like you, who's angry about whether or not breakfast begins or ends over 10:30 at McDonald's. And that's good enough. Let's take you on a tour of what happens when he gets his hands on a bunch of crazy weapons and he reacts the way you would the first time he accidentally fires an RPG into a sewer tunnel and blows up a playground or whatever. So, talk me through as best you understand the translation of that experience is like, you've wanted to run over people.
I guess it was just the time was right to reboot that movie because it was this like nihilistic yet relatable movie that is like stuck in the consciousness. I guess Russell Crowe, it was just like they were able to, it feels like that moment where Russell Crowe would be able to be like, oh, we can get Russell Crowe for that price. Hell yeah. Let's just do it's like, if you do that movie with a no name, it's like, whatever. If you do it with a name, it happens. And I think the visceral element is the same. Is just like, hey, have you ever been stuck in traffic? Wouldn't you love to freak out and running people over? Well, here we go.
What was that game? That video game? Something. Carmageddon in the late 90s. Do you remember that? Yeah, like it was in a world before Grand Theft Auto 3, before Grand Theft Auto 3 brought the idea of like, what if you played Carmageddon, but you could constantly be jumping from car to car to reset. Wow. Yeah. No, that was some stuff.
So she's yelling and then eventually we land and she then immediately goes into hyperdrive on what's happening in the Capitol because everybody's now their phones are going off and everybody's getting
I would
texts and they're
love to
reading.
believe that what you see out of the corner of your eye as you're checking your own tweets and you know what she's getting is she's she's scrolling through her feed going, oh, oh no, oh no, oh.
No, all right. No, she does essentially that. She starts reading on her phone. She's like, what's going on? What is going on? What's happening? Do we have a government? Do we have a government? Am I going to be, is the city under martial law? Am I going to be able to leave and go back home? Like, so, and the thing is, as crazy as she was, and obviously we had this situation to illustrate it before, at that moment, like, yes, it's hyperbolic, but no one's ever seen that before. No one in our lifetime has seen a mob run up into the Capitol. And
yeah, especially at the, I mean, I would imagine, man, it used to be, I used to always be able to lean back and say, yeah, I don't know, Civil War was kind of nuts. But now it's like, now we're crossing that threshold where it's like, there are things that are more nuts than happened during the Civil War.
Yeah, man, there's, the craziest thing about it is that it was as goofy as the elements of it that were front and center, like the ding dong with his bear cap and Q shaman and all these like right wing provocateurs streaming from house offices and stuff like that. But the terrifying part about it is that like, oh, that's all that needs to happen. Like, what if some for real people like were to do it? It just makes everything more real to me. That the psychic wound of that Capitol mob isn't the Capitol mob. It's that, oh, are we either A, in that direction, or B, like, wow, you never really know how fragile life is until you almost get into a car wreck or your child almost gets into an accident.
So this is one of those moments where, because Bonnie expressed a similar sentiment when I got home, and we're in the middle of our production bubble. So I totally missed all the live feeds of everything or whatever.
Yeah.
I wasn't quote unquote there digitally. But upon hearing it later, Bonnie said pretty much the same thing. Like, what? You're saying that just any citizen can walk up and address their grievances to their elected representatives in the center of the nation's capital? And my wife didn't sound like that. Please don't let her hear me say that.
What? Huh? Oh my God.
Sorry. Yeah, I blame Justin for priming me with that character voice. But as I responded, I was like, yeah, it's kind of literally what our country was founded upon. So, like, yes, we could be horrified that somebody brought violence to the Capitol, but I don't feel like we get to be horrified by the fact that they weren't shot on sight, because again, it's quite literally why we had a Revolutionary War.
That's I mean, to me, man, this is probably getting into a conversation that is beyond the pay grade of this comedy.
Well, I don't know, man.
But
this is happy hour. We do get to get in the weeds if we want.
We
but that's
do.
fine.
We do. No. We can go there. We can go there. I similarly can simultaneously understand the grievances of rules for thee, but not for me, in terms of how people handled Black Lives Matter protesting versus the whatever you're calling this Capitol riot. But I will agree with Jen Briney of the Congressional Dish, who was on PX3 along with Andrew Heaton the day it happened, where she was like, no, we can be upset that there is a discrepancy, but cops helping old ladies down the stairs and not turning the Capitol into a killing field is better than the alternative. We want that situation to be more like other situations that find people dead by way of protesting. And by the way, this was not a protest without death. There was one person who was a protester that was shot dead by a security officer or Capitol policeman. There was a cop who was beaten to death. There were a couple people that died because there was a medical emergency and they couldn't get help to them in time. So there was death, but I agree with Jen Briney when we say that, look, let's separate what we can point out as a separation and a difference, while also saying we'd prefer the less deadly version going forward.
Yeah. Well, especially in a world where, if like we play a version of King of the Hill, King of the Mountain, every 4 years in this country. But part of the reason we get away with a bloodless revolution is because we all play by gentlemen's rules. And the very idea that these armed individuals, again, being armed, literally written into that document that we put together shortly after declaring independence from, England, that seems part of the gentleman's rules. And if we get rid of the part where, oh, no, now we are allowed to shoot on sight, you get a very different game of King of the Hill. And as horrific as what we saw is, I'd rather, much like you expressed, I'd rather we lived in a world where we were more horrified that anybody would break a window. And yes, some, in defense, some people would get killed or whatever. But rather than have the expected way for civil police, because again, these are not federal, or I don't know, maybe they are federal officers. DC is a weird jurisdiction.
I don't know what the Capitol Police are. I would presume that they're federal if they are just the Capitol Police.
But I do know that we expect from our local police forces not a mowing down of citizens as they approach to air their grievances, whether they break a window or not. Which is again not to defend their actions, not to defend. I'm just saying, all things being equal, the founding fathers, I think, would have watched everything as I understand. And again, I was not there watching it minute by minute. I did not go by the play-by-play, but I'm pretty sure the founding fathers would have seen that and said, oh, thank goodness. Yeah. Okay. 200 years later, we're still that great. Especially coming out of, Civil War era or whatever.
Yeah.
And great compared to, Venezuela is what I'm saying.
I think the founding fathers would have come back and said, oh my God, what's that? A car? What is a car? Oh my God.
They would have said, like, why can't you're gonna play mini golf on a Quest 2? Oh my God.
These are amazing bifocals. What crazy bifocals you have. That's the most advanced technology of my age.
That's exactly like the thing my friend Ben made. Ben, get over here. You gotta see this.
I think that's what the founding fathers would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it is one of the most consequential moments in modern political history, mostly because it was a real cut the bullshit moment. Like a lot of people found religion real quick. Quick.
That is worth noting is there's no, in my mind, I can't, I'm surprised in an era where, and you correct me on this because you've been paying attention every single goddamn day of this presidency. There's always been how it looks if you squint on one side or on the other side. And most of the Republican response has been, well, it's sort of really a dark charcoal and not completely black or whatever. And then I am not hearing a lot of charcoal talk. I'm hearing both sides seem to agree. This is straight up black and white. One branch of the three branches said, yo, let's fuck up that other branch. Like, regardless of who's in power and whether or not you like that person, that I don't know how to read that. I'm trying my best to think of the most generous interpretation, and I can't.
I think the most generous interpretation is Donald Trump just kept letting it ride. because for whatever reason, he just either it's in his DNA that no, 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 no. You go to the last moment, And that last moment, the way you define it's some like business school. I'm sure it's in some fucking 80s power manual of like no, the real way to you negotiate is you go 5 steps past when anybody else would think that the negotiation's over, and then you see the real test and mettle of a man across the board, and either you walk away or you win, and that's where the real legends are made. And so he just kept up with this shit. He just like literally he's at this event that's there to coincide with the Congress certifying Biden's victory, which by the way is ceremonial. This is something that like in the actual the mechanism of our country, this is done when the states certify it, it's over. Like this is a moment that is kind of ornamental for the representatives now to recognize it in the Capitol. Nothing could be done. Nothing was going to change based on what happened. Trump has this event, get everybody's all riled up, and then says we're gonna march to the Capitol. Doesn't march to the Capitol. Meanwhile, apparently he was going on so goddamn long that the people that really screwed up the Capitol left halfway through.
They're all like, we know where this is headed. Like, I've only read the first half of your sales email. I know what the call to action is. I'm going to get the lowest number on my challenge coin.
Basically, yeah. And they're like, look, whatever. We know you're going to go on and on about Oprah and Rosie O'Donnell or other random shit.
Oh my
We're
God,
do the
Rosie
same thing
O'Donnell. Remember that reference from 25 years ago?
I know, right? And so they go and start screwing stuff up. And then at that point, Trump is like, conflicting reports on what his reaction was. But to me, what sealed his fate was coming out in his announcement. And he's like, we had the election stolen from us. And it's like, nope, that's where you fell off the divide. You can straddle the divide right up until a bunch of goons with your names, with your name on their hats, start smashing windows and shitting in Nancy Pelosi's closet. Like that's it's all.
Did they
it's
do
all,
that? Was that a thing?
Poop was smeared around there. I don't know if they actually shit in the closet, but it's like
might be that they had it in an igloo cooler ready to go.
Maybe. But it's all fun and games until you still keep pressing it. And that's where the next day he had to come out and officially kind of end his campaign and talk about the peaceful transfer of power because he fucked up. He pushed it too far. He just kept letting it ride and letting it ride and letting it ride, no matter how dwindling his stack of influence got. And then the worst happened. Things busted. I don't think that he deliberately wanted people to run up into the Capitol, but I don't think that he thought that it was necessarily not going to happen. What I compared him to in the campaign Undertaker thing that I did was the Joker in the Dark Knight, that he doesn't seem like a guy with a plan. He just does stuff. And I think what the stuff he was doing was just lengthening this thing and lengthening this thing and lengthening it. The worst happened. And now he faces a future not as an ex-president whose image will be rehabilitated like every ex-president's is. Even Nixon.
How quick do we forgive? The moment they're out of power, it's like there's that moment in The Simpsons where he summons the Council of the Damned, and one of them is Richard Nixon, and Richard Nixon says like, well, I'm not dead yet. I just had an article published in Red Book. And then Ned Flanders as the devil says, shut up, I did a favor for you, didn't I? Yes, my lord. And then off he goes. Like even that felt harsh at the time, which
I mean, look, that's what awaited Trump. What awaited Trump was he had to concede. He had to say, I'm going to keep fighting. I'll be out there trying to find the real killers like OJ. And I will not rest until I prove that this voter fraud occurred. And now I'll be a tireless advocate for voter reform, which, by the way, a bipartisan issue. People don't realize this is, again, all this was laid out for him. All he had to do was say uncle, and he could run again in 24. He could be a cultural hero to tens of millions of people that would be buying commemorative china with his face on it forever. And he fucking had to keep letting it ride, and he busted, and now that dude has legal liability. That dude is not going to be looked at as a ex-president. He's going to be looked at by a sizable portion of the country as a failed revolutionary. All of the points for which were held in common with him, and the vast majority of that 70 million that weren't LARPing cunts who thought that it was going to be super cool to run up into the Capitol are now dishonored and will be ushered into the back of any kind of rational political thought. And anybody that defended him is going to be looked at as complicit. Like, this is a absolute, maybe the most self-destructive I have ever, the most self-destructive I have ever seen a politician in history.
Umbre Soulsbane in the chat says he wanted to see it burn. I disagree. I think that he, in his mind, considered himself a big risk taker, somebody who enjoyed big risk and big rewards, who when he crashes hard, but he always rallies and wins big or whatever. And to him, this was yet another big bet that he placed on himself, knowing that it was a risky one, but like every time before, maybe he'll be up, maybe he'll be. And by the way, story's not written yet. Story's not finished yet. Everybody counting him out. We've seen this before. We saw this last time he got impeached.
But no, this is different. This is.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. But every time we've thought that before, or we being the watching, gawking public, how did his impeachment become the most forgettable part of 2020?
Because the impeachment was bullshit, and
right.
Like the first one, that was basically an elongated performative dance of a Democratic fundraising email, of them being promises made, promises kept. You got us the House in the midterms, and now we're going to do what you want. And that's impeach this guy that you really hate. This is bipartisan. And also it's the final answer to, I think, the central tenet of why he even got the White House, which was, hey, 2016, you know what we hate? Politicians. You know what we think has been really good for a really long time? America. You want to know what? This thing's on cruise control. Let's let the dog drive. And we let the dog drive because we figured this thing was just on autopilot. And even if the dog flipped a few switches, maybe they were switches that needed to get flipped no matter what. And we let this kind of chaos agent in because not a lot of people were super thrilled that everything was going great with the government. Some people hated him. Some people loved him. But we found out what happens when you let the dog drive. We found out what happens when it's like, oh, no, wait. This is something we've never seen before. And I think that we are going to see bare minimum governmental service for the rest of our lifetime because of it.
So there was,
at least for that office.
I don't know if you know this, but one of the top 10 streaming thingies on Netflix is a movie directed by Steven Spielberg that's going away on January 31st. I don't know if you've seen it. It has Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks in it. It's called Catch Me If You Can. Have you seen it?
Sure. I have, of course, yeah.
What do you remember of that movie when you saw it? Which would have been, what, early aughts, mid-aughts?
Yeah, I saw it in the theaters, but I also watched it a couple times when it came out on DVD because I really liked it. That was in like the Spielberg Renaissance, because Spielberg had done a bunch of crap movies, and then like Minority Report was good, and then I think that was his
War of the Worlds I rather liked as a capable remake.
That was, yeah. I think he was getting, well, I don't know anyway, yeah. What do I remember of the Frank?
Yeah,
Abagnale,
Frank Abagnale Jr. Yeah, I remember generally liking it. I remember wishing it had more of the really good boots on the ground con jobs that Frank Abagnale did. You know, stuff like walking up to a security deposit box and just putting a custom-made sign on it that says box out of order, leave deposits with security guard, and then walking off with getting the cops to help him move $50,000 of cash in change. And then, him actually passing the bar. And I think in the movie they represent it as Louisiana, but it's actually, I think Virginia or West Virginia or something. But man, is it different watching that movie in a post-Trump era. The idea of what's the harm in a pretender being behind the yoke of a 747. The idea of what's the harm in somebody, doing the BS administration of a hospital. Do you really have to even be a doctor? I guess ceremonially you have to be a doctor, but how bad could it be? The idea of like, what's the harm? Bunch of paperwork. He travels the world, $4 million of cash, like all of that stuff, as per the canonical Frank Abagnale Jr. story, which, by the way, everyone should read the book. And more importantly, watch his TED Talk, where he flat out says the movie isn't what happened. Even the book and he all but does air quotes when he says I wrote, doesn't say what happened. Here's what actually happened. It all just feels so different in a like essentially we had a Frank Abagnale Jr. swoop in and we let the dog drive. And boy, that dog almost got away with it. That dog almost entered the daytime talk show circuit, almost had, he could like what happened with Gore. He quote unquote lost that presidential run and then went on to get both a Grammy and a Oscar
for Inconvenient Truth. Yeah.
That dog almost could drive.
I mean, he almost got reelected. If it's not for COVID, I think he would have.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think if you look at what happened since, all he had to do was say uncle. All he had to do. He could, everything that happened, his entire first term, all he had to do was say, guys, we, exactly what he said didn't have to concede. He didn't say the word I conceded in that statement that he made the day after the Capitol thing. He could have just done that. 3 weeks earlier, a month earlier, so close. I think that the Republicans probably would have won those Senate seats. So the Republicans, his party still would have been in control. He still would have been a guy that you need to pay attention to if you want influence and money.
He would have been somebody for 4 years. He could say / not say whether or not he was going to run again. And tens of millions of people would hang on his every word. Anything that happened in politics, he could have taken his pick of any outlet he wanted to be on to be the guy to give his opinion on what he would have done if he was still in charge. And everybody would have hung on every word.
Because he would have been an ex-president and not a failed revolutionary. And that's, boy, does the power structure love to protect ex-presidents. Because presidents make a lot of decisions. Presidents often make decisions that are life or death. So you never want to prosecute an ex-president. And you want to know who definitely doesn't want to prosecute an ex-president? Everybody below presidents. Because if you're prosecuting presidents, how fast do these motherfuckers get thrown over the side for the sake of experience? So everybody wants to protect ex-presidents. You want to know what everybody needs to immediately get out and discredited and disconnected from any and all power? Failed revolutionaries. Because if you are encouraging revolutionaries, then that means that entire power structure is at risk. And everybody circles in for that.
That's the thing is, I think no matter where anybody in a position of power has been up until now, I think everybody, or now being a week ago, I think in general, people were like, whatever, it's chess, position, pretend to do the thing, say you believe this, move, flip, switch, whatever. But then shit got real when it's like motherfuckers came into my office. And I think that's that. I think so my question now is, Republican Party has already had a challenged reputation, and they made a deal with the devil. Sorry if you're a Trump fan.
No. Let me make this, and let's understand that we're using devils and devil's advocate, right?
Yes,
and
correct.
deal with the
correct.
devil.
Yeah.
But like, people keep saying that. People keep saying that the Republican Party made a deal with the devil. No. There was a leveraged acquisition by the devil. They became employees of the devil. Because I remember 2015. I remember how hard everybody in the Republican in that power structure fought against him. I remember how hard Fox News fought against him. I remember how hard anybody with any kind of stuff. And yes, there was a splinter group of people that were never Trumpers. And that was, it's right there in the name. The price is on the can though.
Right.
And then everybody else was like, all right, turns out this guy signs my paychecks now. So it's not like I loved everybody else that was the boss. Maybe this boss will be just like the rest of them.
And I would assume if you're looking for an emblematic example of that, like Ted Cruz flipping over and showing his belly and becoming Trump's lapdog pretty quick, right?
Well, I mean, again, it's like none of this was odd. Like if you look at like politicians have hated other politicians and run against other politicians and despise them, and then they wind up getting into bed together. Right. Let's not forget that Kamala Harris was ripping Joe Biden apart as a racist on television.
To his face. To his motherfucking face.
And then she's like, I'm so proud to be this vice president. Like, that's normal, right?
That's all
different,
chess.
What is different is that everybody knew the game they were playing except for Trump. And everybody kept thinking, he'll get it. He'll get it. He'll get it. Sure. Like if there's any one thing that the Trump experience has told us is that the game of politics was shockingly easy to game. And it shows you the lack of creativity and the disrespect to the general voter that most politicians showed, that this guy was just able to come in, repeat stuff he heard on the TV, and next thing you know, he's the president, and his esteem goes up so much that he gains votes in his reelection campaign.
So, separate issue. Seeing a bit of chatter sort of nibbling at the edges. I don't suspect, as just a viewer of this discussion, I don't expect that there's a lot of momentum behind it, but some chatter that I never thought I'd see before about like, hey man, First Amendment, maybe it's a bit much. And I was a bit surprised to see some of those because right now we're now in the way with Parler and all that stuff.
In the Parler thing, right? Yeah.
I want to hear your take, but just to rather than seal my prediction in an envelope, all of this sounds to me like every hysteria we've ever heard beforehand, which is communication is now faster than ever before. The human brain isn't built to handle this much fastness to communication. Photoshops. Nobody's heard of Photoshop. Nobody knows what a photo is or what a shop would be. And the idea that a photo could be faked is too new. We have to restrict, like I've heard all this again and again. Yeah. So I don't think there's any momentum to restricting free speech, but boy, am I hearing a lot of people talking about it. Which would
I think we're going to get another. We are going to get another Patriot Act out of this. Oof. Out of what happened on Wednesday, we're going to get another Patriot Act. We're going to get we're going to get a domestic terrorism, quote unquote, restrictors on personal freedom and free speech. I think that's what we're going to get, and Biden's going to do it. Like he's already said as much, that a priority is going to be putting a domestic terrorism legislation in. And for anybody who followed, the first Patriot Act, to me, it's kind of like saying, well, hey, let's do another war on drugs. Like, it seems like a bad idea. That was a bad idea. Nobody liked immediately after we put it in, as soon as we got tired of being scared of 9/11. And I feel like this will fade probably faster than 9/11. But I think we're going to get consequences for it. And I think people are going to be eager to try and put whatever Trump toothpaste back in the bottle by way of legislation.
Well, and that's the real bummer too, is whatever legislation, just like the Patriot Act, essentially for most people, The part that they saw was that they couldn't take toothpaste on planes again. Nobody took down a plane with toothpaste. They took it down with box cutters, and they were all ready, I believe, against the rules of what you're allowed to have. And also, whatever, 9/11 be 9/11. I'm going to guess that we're going to see a lot of prohibitions on the type of language you're allowed to say and how and when and where. But like Trump was always careful. He would speak in that weird, vague word salad way where he would say like, and we're going to go down there and we're going to really let them know. Oh, I think we know. Like you didn't say anything. There's nothing you could put him down on. And as a result, I think whatever laws get passed, even that exact speech that inspired that exact riot or whatever you want to call it will pass the sniff test and not be relevant.
I think we have seen a baseline dehumanization of each other in the last 4 years. And I think that it has beget each phase at either turn. And each time it happens to us, we recoil. And each time it happens from us, we defend it. I'll just say this. I haven't seen a whole lot of people that were tweeting ACAB saying, awesome, that Capitol police officer being dead is great, because I'm sure he was awful. Like, I haven't seen a lot of that. I think that these are on political lines. Like, we don't have a whole lot of perspective because we believe we're in a holy war. And when you're in a holy war, you don't care about the soul of your enemy. You care about you winning. And so I think that that's going to be reflected in whatever comes out of this, because after 9/11, we saw ourselves as in a holy war, as the victims of a holy war, and literally, right? Like where we needed to protect ourselves against people for whom did not have the same kind of decency that we did. And so it's okay that we sacrifice some of our own copious amounts of freedom so we can maintain safety. And I think that now the villain is more insidious. It's our next door neighbor. We're all Cylons and we have a plan.
Well, that's also a tougher, at the end of the day, like we've seen this version of the game before with communists. If your ideas were too liberal, you were a bit outside, you colored a little bit outside the lines. You might be a secret seditionist or what have you. God, it really is. It's just a mirror image of that exact same moment.
But even then, well, no, because at that point there was an outside force that had nukes, right? Like there was an element where you could ratchet up communism because the USSR existed, because we didn't know, by way of our creaky communication system, the USSR was not indeed what the USSR was in reality, but rather
as an ideal, as a monstrous,
yeah. And that played into this secret idea that lingered in the back of everybody's heads of like, oh, I wonder if communism is the best way to do it, and that they're gonna run over us because of that.
Do you think that is a dumb? Stick with me. I'm pretty sure you'll follow this. Do you think over at Disney there's somebody in a writer's room who is happy or unhappy if all he sees is dollar signs right now in terms of the upcoming MCU project based on they're going to do a whole bunch of scroll stuff. The scroll stuff, scrolls at the height, of the Red Scare. Scrolls were they're able to impersonate human beings. They could be your neighbors. They could be your pastor. Whatever. Scrolls was code for communist. Like they're getting ready to enter their whole secret scroll war thing in the MCU.
Maybe.
Like, do we think we just see a little bit of a tweak and they go political, or do they have to rewrite it and make it dumb and unpolitical?
I don't
Secret
know
Invasion. That's what it was. Thank you.
because the Marvel's politics have been very like when Citibank sponsors the gay pride parade.
Right.
Like it's very sanitized corporate, like, yes, queen, like, girls are as good as boys, like that kind of stuff, which is like inoffensive to me. It is what it is. I know for some people it gets in their craw, but uh uh I don't know if Marvel or Disney is willing to get into like some for real stuff. Maybe they are. Maybe they lean into it, but
Or
I
well,
would
well, well, like,
I would almost expect them to go the opposite direction.
well, exactly. But that's my point, is whether you highlight it to say we are this or we're not this. Like first go round in the comic books, it was fairly transparent that, oh, you're doing a communism thing, right?
Yeah.
This go round, I mean, it's like they either need to try to sell tickets to everybody by saying, we're not talking about far right people, or maybe we are. We don't know. Like you draw. They have to draw some kind of circle around it. Whether how they color it is what I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. My guess would be that they either are. I mean, the problem is also it's like, can they even fight that culture war? Can they fight the culture war? I mean, remember, all these scripts that are going to be coming out for Marvel within the next 2 years were all written 2 years ago,
Right.
right? Like, so I think we're going to see, especially because of COVID, we're going to see a lot of outdated of Trump era ideas that will play out on our silver screen and may or may not have been a large part in forming their larger arc.
Yeah. Whew. So, last
Yeah.
question: what moves does the GOP have right now?
Saved by the Bell, the new class. That's the only thing that, if you were a name between 2016 and now,
bad time to be Ted Cruz.
It's time to pass the torch. You're too old to rock. No more rocking for you.
Bad time to be what your Rand Paul's. Justin Amash dodged that train by jumping off a year ago.
Yeah, Rand might stay because he's always been a wild card that like opposed Trump stuff in the same way that
I don't know, man.
Embraced Trump stuff.
I heard an awful lot more of him with the straight face trying to sell some Trump lines than I expected 2 or 3 years ago.
Because Trump, again, he's the dog driving, and so periodically he's going to take more of a turn than you would normally expect. And Rand Paul was like, "Oh, crazy turns. This is I love. Normally I'm the one saying crazy turns, but I can actually sway stuff if I back this person who apparently just listens to the last person that talked to him." So Rand, I don't say this to defend Rand, just to say that Rand's brand is say a bunch of stuff that is normally not in lockstep. Mitch McConnell, I think, did his best to get that last that last helicopter out of Saigon.
Yep.
Other than that, I think if you're Cruz, if you're Hawley, it's time. You're going to get primary challengers for all of them. You're going to get recall stuff. I don't know if anybody is going to want their names on their legislation. And also, I don't know what the status, because their idea was, oh, we back Trump and we can inherit his working class coalition. I don't think that coalition exists anymore. Like, I think that there are a lot of just like rank and file lower taxes. I don't like the Democratic Party. I feel like it's tilting to left kind of people that are also like, but I don't want my name anywhere near an armed revolution of the country. Like, I don't know. I think that there will always be an element that reveres Trump, but boy, as soon as he was like, as soon as he sold out the people that ran up into the Capitol, who knows where that is? Who knows who inherits that? This is all up for grabs. The only thing I know is that if you are a young, out of power Republican, the time is now to denounce those before you, declare your values, and seal your power. That is, I think,
which of course, I think it's fair to say, regardless of anyone's, true heart of hearts, values or beliefs, like, man, what a chicken shit world we live in, where it's now that it's not like, it wasn't even enough that the election was over. It's like, we went right up to the votes being counted, and it took till after an attempted revolution. Now you finally feel safe. All of you can finally feel safe on turning your backs.
Well, especially because it was a coup in the way that me and you and our Dragon Con Hilton hotel room at 4:00 in the morning would try to execute a coup. Like, we were just like, let's just run up in there. Ah! And then we just ran it like, coup. Did that work? Like, it's a coup. Like, it was, it just, it was so slapdash and ugly. And I'm not trying to take away anything from it, because it was deadly. And it was something that I think revealed, again, a psychic wound that will not be filled in anytime soon. But for that's where the party was led. That's where those tens of millions of people that just didn't like Hillary Clinton and didn't like Joe Biden, like, there is incalculable damage to so many of those ideas, that party, and specifically to go from, because God, the media would have loved to rehab Trump. They would have loved. They made.
Oh, they would have loved saying out loud how much they're hating him while enjoying those sweet dish soap ad dollars on coming up today on Fox and ABC and NBC Friends.
People have a hard time believing that. Younger people have a hard time believing. Like, I was in college when George W. Bush was president, and the vitriol toward him was
equal,
as intense as it was to Trump. The difference was, it was only around, like, college campuses where kids are, learning politics for the first time, and professors who are into, gaslighting kids who are learning politics for the first time, and super political areas. That's where the hatred for George W. Bush was. Trump went wide. That was cultural, bedrock cultural. And now, but the love was the same. The love was more. The love was bigger. And now it's like, you can't, even for people I think who are like, you want to know what? I thought he was funny. But how funny was that joke when it got to
Oh,
me?
yeah.
I didn't like the punchline.
Well, and plus also, marketing guru Brian Brushwood here, people only remember the beginning and the end. Nobody remembers the shit in the middle. Ooh, what an unfortunate ending this brand is going out on. Because that's all. Yeah. That is all. All of it collapses down to that moment and that legacy. Oof. All right. Quick. We got 1 minute. Something you're happy about? I'm happy that I have a quest now to beat Andrew Heaton to get a quest 2 before Andrew Heaton. So I don't have to.
Well, he already has it, but he has not. But despite me trying to fucking walk him through it, he has not friended me.
Oh.
And we have not played golf. So you could be the first person that we play mini golf together. The faster you get a goddamn Oculus.
All right. What about you? What are you happy about?
I'm happy that you're getting an Oculus so we can play some fucking golf.
Goddamn right. Okay. All right. Look, we'll see you guys. Please enjoy these photos of Russell Crowe at various sizes. There we go. Bye, guys. We'll see you.
Happy hour.
See ya.
Happy hour. Natty Tax Happy Hour.